here.
Hi, I'm Debbie Kitterman.
And I'm Brandy Kitterman, and we are here to equip you
and challenge you to dare to hear the voice of God. And we have convinced Karter to come back and be in studio with us. And this time on this episode, we're going to talk about faith is spelled R-I-S-K. That's right. So faith is spelled risk. And can I just say that the first time you said this to me, my eyes got really big and I thought, I do not like you. Because he was really challenging me to step out beyond myself. But I want you to talk about it. So I'm going to be quiet and I'll ask you questions. So can you explain to our listeners what you mean by faith is spelled R-I-S-K?
Well, every time I think of risk, God spoke to Abraham and he said, pack up your family and leave.
Yeah.
And he did not tell him north, south, east, or west. He just said leave. And he didn't even tell him where to go. And considering in his culture, he had it made. He had his own land where he could have, and he had lots of sheep and lots of servants. And for him to leave was a lose-lose situation. Yeah. And he took a phenomenal risk. And he did what he felt God wanted him to do, and he moved. And look at everything that came out of that, including Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I mean, it was everybody, every single person you look in the Bible that when they did mighty things, they took a risk. Risk that they heard God.
Okay. So Brandy, I'm gonna give you some things to think about. So I want you to think about recently, when was the time that you risked something? Okay? Yeah, like recently. Like, is there a time when you risked something that you felt like God was saying to do? So Karter,
Okay.
So for you, what does that look like for you? Because people that have listened to you before on the podcast are like, well, Karter's not afraid of anything. I mean, look, he writes words for people. He asks them right on the spot if they've asked Jesus into their heart. Like, this man has no fear whatsoever, and he risk isn't anything that scares him. So what would you say to people that say that, like, risk doesn't cause you to be afraid?
Their risk. I don't like giving prophetic words to leadership.
Okay.
I do not. That's a risk. And really, what I say is, you know what, send somebody else. But the thing is, if God gives you the word, that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And so that's a big risk, because what comes to mind is, who are you? They're pastor so-and-so or something like that. And the other thing is, there are certain types of personalities and types of people that I figure, God, you can send somebody else. And so, even though I know better because I'm getting an encouraging thought for them, yeah. If God didn't want me to give it, then he wouldn't give it to me. But I still have to make a decision to take a risk and give it to him anyway. Yeah. Because, quite often, maybe leadership wouldn't take that word.
Yeah, that's true. And that is kind of a scary thing for those of us that are prophetic. It's like, it's one thing to minister to other people and stuff, but then to minister to leadership, sometimes that is a risk, because we don't know if they'll receive it, if they even know what we're doing. And rejection's
a big deal.
Rejection's a big deal. Like, we've talked about this a lot. Like, we could do this all day long if rejection wasn't a piece of it. But it always seems that rejection comes in, because sometimes people reject the words that we give. They reject us as the deliverer. Leadership does the same thing. They look at us, who do you think you are? We actually don't think we're anybody. We're just being obedient to God. And so I'm just, I'm thinking about over any testimonies that I have when I had to step out. And I have one that I'll share. Brandy, do you have anything that you want to share?
Yeah, so recently, actually, I had kind of felt the Lord prompting me to make a transition in pretty much everything. So I was working full-time at a rental agency, and I ended up working about 50 hours a week. And then I of course was exhausted, and I didn't have any time to do the things that I felt like were my calling. So, worship leading and graphics and design and stuff like that. Because I'm also the digital media director at here at my church.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Digital media director.
Say that 3 times.
I know, right? And so I didn't have any time to do any of that stuff, which was my passion. And I truly felt like that's my calling, being a visual worship leader as well as like a musical worship leader. And so I had to take the risk to step out and leave my job.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's a big risk.
It's a big risk, especially because I didn't really have anything stable, I guess, of like a guaranteed financial income, right? But I knew that I was not happy where I was. I was not going deeper with the Lord. I just didn't have the energy to put into my relationship with Him, which was really important to me. And so I had tried to go part-time at that position, and they had basically told me that wouldn't work. And then it was time, and I had to leave. And so I let my boss know that I was going to be putting in my 2 weeks near the end of the month, and he went way above my head to his boss, and then his boss went to her boss, and they ended up getting me, they created a position for me that was part-time.
And that was unheard of. And that was
unheard of. So people don't just transition to part-time in that job. And so, like, I was super blessed. Like, God really paved the way for me to be able to do this. So now I have time dedicated towards doing the things that I love and the things that I'm called to.
Great.
And I also have the, financial stability of having a job part-time. But it was a huge risk for me coming to that decision of, this makes no worldly sense to just leave my job and not have another one lined up.
Right. And this was, like, you had just graduated from college, too.
Yeah.
So this was the job in the field that you had went to school for.
Yeah.
You went to school for business management. You were doing business management. You were on the track for that. And then for you to step out and then even come to us, your parents, and say, hey, by the way, I feel like God is saying this. And but you had to make those choices and those steps. That was a huge risk.
Yeah.
And a huge step of faith that God honored. And I think that's the thing that I love about the story that you shared about Abraham, is it makes no logical sense whatsoever. Whatsoever. And yet, as you do it, that God says, I love that faith. It's like faith is a commodity in the spirit realm that God loves. And He just takes it and He says, now I'm going to bless it, and I'm going to throw favor on it, and I'm just gonna add to you because you're stepping out in obedience. So I was thinking about, like, what is a time when I have risked something. And for me, I don't like to get it wrong. That's just one of the things, like, if I'm going to do something, I want to do it well. Some might say that there's a perfectionist issue there. I've been working on that. But
You don't say.
But one of the times, my heart is to minister to everybody. But when you're speaking to people, groups over 50, you just can't minister to everybody, right?
Right.
So I asked the Lord in advance, who am I supposed to minister to? And He'll give me, like, somebody wearing purple, or somebody wearing a leather jacket, or somebody by this name. And I remember particularly, and I didn't do it a lot at our church at that time, just because we weren't senior leaders at that time. I mean, we had just transitioned into the senior leadership, but we were still in transition. And I remember it was on a Sunday morning, and I was praying, and the Lord dropped two men's names in my heart. And I was like, I don't know anybody at church, because I was thinking, maybe I know.
Take a risk here.
And I was like, okay, well, maybe there'll be a visitor by those names. And so I get to church, and you just know, right?
Yes.
You know when it's God, like, your heart's just pounding, and you get all clammy, and you're like, I don't want to do it, but the more you hesitate, the worse it gets, right? So I'm just like, okay, I just have to deliver these things. And so I just stepped up. And it's not that I didn't minister and give encouraging words, but I never done anything like this in that church setting or anything before. And I just stood up and I said, I felt like the Lord gave me these two names, and I called them out, and I said, and I don't know if there's anybody here today, but I feel like I'm supposed to pray for you. And a woman stood up.
Really?
And I was looking, and I looked at her, and I knew her. And I'm thinking, her husband's not one of those names. Her son is not the other name. Like, how do these two names relate to her? And I said, I feel like these two names are connected as somehow, some way. And when she stood up, I was like, how are those connected? She said, one's my father and one's my stepfather.
Ooh.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. And then the Lord just kind of gave me an encouraging word to
You
minister
took the
to.
risk and stepped out.
I took the risk and stepped out, and had I not done that, and it was at a time when one of them had been diagnosed with something, the other one was starting to get sick, but she loved them both, and I had no idea what their names were, but that took a step of faith, of risking, looking silly, looking crazy, looking like I was insane. We like to call it a little fruity and a little nutty, right?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what we call, that's what we call
One
those.
card short of a deck.
One card short of a deck. That's what we like to call that one. So I think this business of risking it for faith and trusting God is huge. And I think this week, as we end this episode, I just want to challenge you, because that's what Dare to Hear is all about, right? That we challenge you and we're trying to equip you. But look not just back at times when you didn't risk it for the faith, but as you come forward, would you purpose yourself to say, I'm going to step out in faith and I'm going to risk being obedient to God. I'm going to risk making a fool of myself. I'm going to risk it for the sake of the kingdom. And we just want to leave you with that. So faith is spelled R-I-S-K. And I am Debbie Kitterman. Thank you for listening to Dare to Hear the podcast. We have enjoyed chatting with you on this episode.
And I'm Brandy Kitterman, and if you guys are watching on YouTube, please go ahead and subscribe, smash the bell icon, and give us a thumbs up. Also tell your friends. If you are listening on the podcast to our lovely voices, please give us a 5-star rating and subscribe
Can you
to
ask
us.
for that?
I can ask for that. I don't mind.
Okay, you can
Should
do
we
it.
not?
Well, we like 5-star ratings.
We like 5 stars. Okay, how about that?
That's
Give us a rating. We like 5 stars.
You're honest and best.
There
You're
you
honest and
go.
your highest, yeah.
And leave us a good review or an honest review.
Yeah.
Just leave us a review and tell your friends.
That's right. And if you have a topic or someone you'd like us to talk to, we would love for you to submit that to us at info@dare2here.com, and we will include that in one of the upcoming podcasts soon. And if you are intrigued about this gift of prophetic encouragement at all, please feel free to check out my book at any online retailer, or you can go to my website, debbiekitterman.com, and go to the store and you can get a signed copy from me. With that, have a blessed week, and don't forget, faith is spelled R-I-S-K.
I'm not in the thunder, I'm not in the rain, I'm not in the winds of the hurricane. Look to me, I'm drawing you near, I have called you, dare to hear. 'Cause there's peace in my presence, so do not fear. Oh, do not fear. I have called you, dare to hear. I'm not in the shaking that shatters the rock.